I don't usually talk about this, and even writing it down feels like I'm inviting something back into my life. But I think people should hear it. Because the woods have a way of holding things, and some of those things are better left alone. Back in 2019, I was living in Washington State, not far from the Cascades. I loved hiking. Even on days when most people wouldn't go out, I'd throw on my rain jacket, lace up my boots, and head into the forest. The rain didn't bother me. It actually made the woods feel calmer. There's something about being alone with the sound of rain hitting leaves that felt almost cleansing. That changed one night in October. I had just gotten off work late in the afternoon, and the forecast was calling for heavy rain. I decided to squeeze in a short hike before it got too dark. The trail I picked wasn't remote, but once you got a mile or two in, the trees were so thick you could forget there was a road nearby. I told myself I'd just walk to the ridge, take in the view, and head back. By the time I was halfway up, the rain had gone from a drizzle to sheets pouring through the trees. The ground was soft and slick, my hood narrowing my vision so that all I really saw was the muddy trail ahead of me. It was quiet, aside from the rain and the occasional creak of branches in the wind. No other hikers, no sounds of cars in the distance, just me. It was on the way back down that I first felt it. That prickling sensation on the back of your neck, like eyes are on you. At first I brushed it off. I thought maybe it was just nerves from being out there alone in a storm. But the feeling wouldn't go away. Every few steps, I found myself glancing over my shoulder. And then, in the beam of my flashlight, I saw something that made my stomach twist. About 20 feet off the trail, behind the trunk of a tall fir tree, was a face. Or more accurately, a head. Just a head. The pale skin glistened under the rain, hair plastered flat to the scalp, the features sharp and motionless. What made it worse was the eyes. They were open, wide, and locked on me. They didn't blink. They didn't move. They just stared. I froze. My first thought was that it had to be a mask, some hunter or prankster messing around. But the rain was running down its cheeks, dripping off the chin, as real as anything else around me. I forced myself to call out. My voice cracked when I said, "Hello? Is someone there?" But the head didn't respond. No movement. No sound. Just that same unblinking stare. My legs felt like they didn't want to work, but I made myself start walking again. Faster now, not quite running but close. I kept my flashlight aimed straight ahead, but my eyes couldn't stop flicking to the trees. And every time I glanced over, I swear I saw it again. Not moving toward me, not even changing position. Just there, visible through gaps in the trunks, staring. Always angled perfectly, like no matter where I was on the trail, it could see me. I don't remember the last half mile of that hike clearly. All I remember is the pounding of my heart, the sound of rain drowning out everything else, and the overwhelming sense that I had to keep moving. When I finally reached the parking lot, I practically threw myself into my car. Even then, sitting behind the wheel with the doors locked, I couldn't shake the thought that the head was out there at the edge of the tree line, waiting. I didn't go back to that trail for weeks. I didn't even want to think about it. But one night at a gas station near the foothills, I overheard a couple of locals talking about the head. My ears perked up immediately. One of them noticed me listening and asked if I'd ever heard the story. I told him I wasn't sure, and he leaned in a little, lowering his voice. He said people around here believed in something they called the Watcher's Head. According to him, it had been seen for decades, always on rainy nights, always in the woods. He said it wasn't a body, not a spirit in human form, just the head. Some claimed it belonged to a logger from the early 1900s, a man decapitated in a storm when a tree fell. His body was found crushed, but his head was never recovered. Others said it was older than that, some kind of curse tied to the forest itself. The part that made my blood run cold was when he told me what people believed happened if you saw it. He said those who left the woods alone after seeing the head would carry its gaze with them. They'd spend the rest of their lives catching glimpses of it, in reflections, in puddles, in windows streaked with rain. Always watching, always waiting. I tried to laugh it off in front of him, but I couldn't hide how unsettled I felt. He must have noticed because he asked me quietly,
"You've seen it, haven't you?"
I didn't answer. I didn't need to. That night, back at my apartment, I took a shower to wash the chill off me. When I stepped out, I caught myself staring at the bathroom mirror. The steam made it foggy, but through the condensation, I swore I saw something else behind my reflection. A pale face, wet hair, eyes staring directly into mine. I blinked hard, wiped the mirror, and it was gone. Just me standing there. But it didn't feel like I was alone. Since then, rainy nights have never been the same. I can't bring myself to hike in the rain anymore. I avoid looking into puddles when I walk outside after a storm. I keep curtains drawn when it's wet out. Because every so often, when I slip up, when I let my eyes linger too long, I see it again. Ahead, unmoving, watching. And in those moments, I know the locals were right. Once you've been seen by it, you don't walk alone anymore. During my second year at university, I lived in a small dorm-style apartment, a single room with a window overlooking the campus courtyard. The building was old, the kind with creaking floors and peeling paint, but it was affordable and convenient. I liked the solitude. It gave me space to study and to think. Most of the time, I was completely alone. I've always tried to live rationally. I don't believe in ghosts or curses, and I laugh at most haunted stories. But there are some things that stick with you, things that logic can't explain. Even now, years later, I can feel the same unease creeping back whenever the rain starts pouring, and the storm clouds hang low over the campus. One evening we had a massive storm. The rain fell in sheets, drumming against the roof and windows so hard it sounded like the building itself might give way. I had been at the library late, working on a paper that was due the next day. By the time I returned to my room, I was soaked, my backpack heavy with books, and my hair plastered to my head. I unlocked the door and stepped inside and froze. The floor was covered in water. Not just a small puddle. The entire floor was slick, reflecting the dull light from the overhead bulb. My socks stuck to the wet carpet and cold water seeped through, chilling me instantly. I looked around, wondering where it had come from. The window was closed and locked. The ceiling and walls were intact. There was no obvious source for the water. I grabbed a mop from the corner and started cleaning. The chill of the water seeping into my bare feet made my skin prickle. That's when I saw it in the reflection. At first, I thought it was my imagination, a trick of the dim light bouncing off the wet floor. But then I noticed the shapes. Muddy, smudged handprints appearing behind me in the reflection of the window. Not on the glass itself, just in the reflection. They were faint but distinct. Fingers splayed as though something was pressing against the puddle, trying to climb out. I froze. My pulse shot through the roof. I slowly turned around, expecting someone, something, but the room was empty. Just the dripping water, the mop in my hand, and the faint smell of damp carpet. I tried to convince myself it was the reflection playing tricks on me. Maybe the light hit the puddles at a certain angle. Maybe I was exhausted and imagining things. I wiped at the water with the mop, but as soon as I did, the prints would reappear, murky and glistening in the reflection. The first night I didn't sleep. I sat on my bed, blanket wrapped tightly around me, staring at the puddles in the window. Every time I glanced at the reflection, I swore I could see the faint outline of fingers moving ever so slightly, as if whatever had made them was alive beneath the water, waiting. I couldn't look away, and at the same time I didn't want to. By dawn, the marks vanished. The water had dried somewhat, and the reflection showed only me and the room. I told myself it had been a dream or some strange trick of the storm. But deep down I knew it wasn't. And then it happened again. Every time there was a heavy storm, I would return to my room and find the floor wet, the puddles reflecting the window, and the handprints would appear. Always behind me, always faint but unmistakable. They didn't move toward me, at least not yet, but they were there waiting, pressing, watching. I never discovered how the water got in. The dorm had no leaks, no plumbing issues, nothing to explain it. I asked maintenance once, but they found nothing. I even asked other students in nearby rooms if they had ever seen anything similar. Most just laughed, some told me I was imagining things. But a couple of them gave me a wary look, and one whispered that similar things had been rumored in the building for years: stormy nights, mysterious puddles, and reflections that shouldn't exist. After a few weeks, I stopped sleeping in that room during storms. I would crash in a friend's apartment or in the lounge or anywhere else. I didn't want to be alone with the puddles, the reflections, or whatever it was that left those handprints. The fear wasn't just about what I could see, it was about what I couldn't. Whatever had left those marks was under the floor or behind the reflection or somewhere between. And it was patient, waiting. Sometimes, when the storm is heavy and the wind rattles the windows, I still think about that room. I remember the smell of wet carpet, the chill of the water soaking through my socks, and the horrifying certainty that I was being watched. And if I ever catch a glimpse of a reflection in a puddle or in a window, I can't help but glance over my shoulder just in case. I don't know what it wants. I don't know why the handprints appear only on stormy nights. I don't know if it's conscious or if it's just something that exists in the water and waits for anyone alone to see it. All I know is that it's there and it's patient and it remembers me. Even writing this now, I can feel the same chill in the back of my neck. I can hear the faint drip of rain outside my window. And I can't stop checking the reflections in my own apartment, just to make sure the handprints aren't there. Because I know that if I look away for too long, even for a second, they could appear, pressing from beneath the surface, waiting, watching, and I'll never be able to forget it. It was the kind of story that you only hear about in small towns, the type passed down by older neighbors and parents who swear it really happened when they were kids. The way I heard it, it all took place on one stormy summer afternoon. The kind where the skies blacken out of nowhere, and the rain comes down in sheets so heavy you can't even see 10 feet ahead of you. This was years ago, back when kids actually spent their days outside, riding bikes, playing near the woods, or hanging out by the corner store. A group of 5 kids, 3 boys and 2 girls, all elementary school age, were caught out when the rain hit. They hadn't brought umbrellas or jackets, and within minutes they were completely drenched. They huddled under the awning of a closed shop, waiting for it to let up, but the storm wasn't stopping. The streets were starting to flood, water rushing down gutters and pooling into the low parts of the town. That's when they heard it. Not thunder, not the pounding rain, but the sound of an ice cream truck. At first, none of them believed it. Who would even be driving an ice cream truck in weather like this? But then, just faintly through the curtain of rain, they saw headlights glow. A white truck, a little rusted on the edges, pulling to a stop in front of the shop where they were hiding. On the side, painted in faded letters, was the word ice cream, and dangling from a pole was a striped umbrella that swayed in the storm. The man inside leaned over and opened the door. He wasn't smiling like you'd expect an ice cream man to. He didn't have the goofy paper hat or the kind of cheer most of those guys put on for kids. But he didn't seem mean either. Just quiet. He waved for the children to come out of the rain and pointed to the sidecar attached to his truck. It was covered with a canvas sheet, stretched tightly so that rain ran right off it. The kids looked at each other. None of them wanted to stay in the freezing rain, and none of them thought twice about it. One by one, they ran to the truck and climbed inside the sidecar, shivering, dripping wet. The ice cream man didn't say much. Just nodded, shut the flap, and started driving. The kids later said it felt like hours. The truck went up and down side streets, circling around, avoiding the places where the flooding was bad. They remember hearing the rain hammering the canvas above their heads, the occasional flash of lightning through the gaps, and the hum of the engine as the man kept driving. What was strange, though, was how long it went on. They had no idea where they were. None of the usual sights they recognized, no stores or houses they knew. It was as if he kept driving them in circles through parts of town that didn't exist anymore. Eventually they grew restless. One of the boys said they peeked out from under the canvas at one point. What they saw made no sense. The road stretched out in front of them, but it was covered in running water, almost like a shallow river. Still, the truck moved without slowing down, without even splashing. The rain was pouring harder than ever, yet somehow the sidecar stayed completely dry. None of the kids asked questions. Maybe they were too cold, too tired, or just too scared to say anything. Finally, the truck stopped. The man lifted the canvas flap and told them it was safe to get out. When they crawled out, blinking against the rain, they realized they were near the old bridge at the edge of town. Just a few minutes' walk from their homes. The man stayed in the truck watching them. He raised one hand, waved once, and then drove off into the storm. The kids ran home as fast as they could. By then, their parents and neighbors had already been out searching, panicked because the children had been missing for hours. When they told their story, the adults looked uneasy. Some even went to check the bridge. Here's the part that unsettled everyone. The mud all around the bridge was soft and slick from the downpour. It was impossible to walk across it without leaving deep prints. But there were no tire tracks anywhere. No sign of a truck ever being there. And when one of the older neighbors heard what the children described, his face went pale. Because the man they claimed to see, the ice cream man with the sidecar, he had retired almost 15 years earlier. Some even said he passed away not long after that. Yet every detail the kids gave matched him exactly. The quiet way he acted. The same truck, same old lettering, same striped umbrella on the side. The children never saw him again after that night. And for years afterward, whenever storms rolled into town, parents would keep their kids inside, not just because of the flooding, but because they didn't want them to hear the sound of an ice cream truck in the rain. People in that town still talk about it sometimes. Some claim the kids had just been confused, that their imaginations filled in the blanks after getting lost in the storm. But others, especially the parents, swear they know what those children saw. And the most chilling part of the story is this. The kids all described one detail the same way. When they looked back as the truck drove away, they said the man never turned on his headlights. Yet somehow, in the middle of a storm so heavy you couldn't see across the street, he disappeared down the road as if the rain wasn't even there. To this day, no one can explain how those kids made it home.